Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim walked through the crystal halls of the Galactic Council station and felt every eye watching him. The station orbited Nexus Prime and housed representatives from 847 different species. None of them had ever seen a human before. None of them believed humans should exist at all. The halls stretched high above his head with walls made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. Alien delegates floated, crawled, and walked in formations he could not understand. Some had 6 arms while others had no arms at all. Many spoke in sounds his translator could barely convert to words he knew. The air smelled like metal and flowers, mixed together. Hyunwoo wore his best diplomatic uniform but knew it looked strange to everyone here. The fabric came from earth cotton, and the cut followed human body shape. Everything about him marked him as different. Everything about him marked him as impossible. Chancellor Vextar waited in the main assembly hall. Her species looked like tall birds with silver feathers and 4 wings. She had ruled the council for 200 years and never faced a problem like this. Her voice came through the translator as sharp notes. "Ambassador Kim," she said, "welcome to Nexus Prime. We must speak before you address the full council." "Thank you, Chancellor," Hyunwoo replied. "I am honored to represent humanity here." "That is what concerns us," Vextar said. "Your species claims to come from what we call a Class X Deathworld. Our scientists say this is impossible. No intelligent life can evolve on such a planet." Hyunwoo had heard this before during the long journey from Earth. The alien ship that first found human colonies had reported back in panic. Their computers showed Earth as a world where everything tried to kill everything else. Storms that could destroy cities. Animals that hunted other animals for food. Plants that made poison. Diseases that jumped between species. The alien said no thinking creatures could survive there. "Earth is our home," Hyunwoo said. "We evolved there over millions of years. We adapted to the conditions." "Adapted?" Vextar repeated. "Show me your adaptation records." They walked to a smaller room where holographic displays showed Earth from space. The planet looked blue and green and white. To human eyes, it looked beautiful. To alien eyes, it looked like a nightmare. "Your world has ice ages every 100,000 years, an advisor said. His species looked like walking crystals. "Entire continents freeze solid. How did your ancestors survive?" "They learned to make fire," Hyunwoo said. "They made tools and clothing. They worked together." "Impossible," the crystal being said. "Ice ages last thousands of generations. No species can maintain knowledge that long without written language." "Humans pass down stories," Hyunwoo said. "Parents taught children who taught their children. We remembered." The room fell silent. In the galaxy, most species developed writing before they needed to survive real hardship. They had never needed to memorize survival skills across generations. Vextar brought up another display. "Your planet has supervolcanoes. They can destroy all life on whole continents. How do you survive that?" "We don't always survive," Hyunwoo said. "Sometimes many humans die, but some always live. They rebuild and learn and grow stronger." "You accept massive death as normal," another advisor said. This one looked like a floating jellyfish. "This is madness." "This is life on Earth," Hyunwoo said. "We do not like death, but we do not let fear of death stop us from living." The advisors looked at each other with expressions Hyunwoo could not read. They whispered in languages his translator did not know. He waited and watched their reactions. "Tell us about your predators," Vextar said finally. Hyunwoo took a breath. This would be the hard part. "Earth has many predators. Large cats that hunt alone. Packs of wolves that hunt together. Bears that can break trees. Sharks in the oceans. Snakes with deadly poison. Spiders. Insects that carry disease." Several advisors made sounds of distress. One actually fell over. The floating jellyfish changed colors rapidly, and humans lived among these creatures, Vextar said. "We learned to avoid them or fight them or use tools against them," Hyunwoo said. "We developed weapons and tactics and teamwork." "You developed weapons," the crystal advisor said. "What kind of weapons?" "Sharp stones at first," Hyunwoo said. "Then metal blades, spears for distance, bows and arrows. later guns and explosives. You invented tools specifically to kill living things, Vextar said. Yes, Hyunwoo said, and later we used the same tools to protect ourselves and hunt for food. The room went quiet again. Most galactic species had never needed to invent weapons. Their worlds had no large predators. Their evolution focused on cooperation and technology rather than survival and conflict. Chancellor, Hyunwoo said, may I ask about your world? Velthan is a garden world, she said with pride. Stable climate, no dangerous storms. All animals eat plants. Our ancestors developed intelligence to solve social problems and build better communities. That sounds peaceful, Hyunwoo said. It is the normal way, Vextar said. Intelligence develops when species have time to think and learn, without constantly fighting for survival. But humans developed intelligence while fighting for survival, Hyunwoo pointed out. We learned to think fast under pressure. We learned to solve problems when our lives depended on the answer. The advisors looked uncomfortable. Their understanding of evolution said intelligence needed peace and safety. Humans proved that intelligence could also come from conflict and danger. We should move to the main assembly, Vextar said. The full council waits to meet you. The main assembly hall held representatives from every member species. They sat in sections arranged by body type and environmental needs. Some breathed different gases. Others needed different temperatures. The technology that kept them all alive in one space cost more than most planets produced in a year. Hyunwoo stood at the center podium and looked up at hundreds of alien faces. Most showed curiosity mixed with fear. Some showed disgust. A few showed what might have been excitement. Honored representatives, he began. I am Hyunwoo Kim of Earth. I speak for humanity as we request membership in your great council. Murmurs filled the hall. The translator worked hard to convert them all into sounds Hyunwoo could understand. You claim to represent a Deathworld species, came a voice from the upper sections. Prove you are really from such a place. Hyunwoo had expected this. He reached into his diplomatic case and pulled out a small device. The security systems immediately focused on him, but he moved slowly and carefully. This is a standard emergency kit from Earth, he said. Every human carries one when traveling. He opened the kit and showed its contents: water purification tablets, bandages and medical supplies, a knife with multiple tools, fire-starting equipment, a small radio, emergency food that could last for weeks. We carry these because emergencies happen often on Earth, he said. Storms knock down power. Earthquakes block roads. Floods destroy bridges. Every human knows how to survive alone for days or weeks. The representative stared at the simple survival kit. To them it looked like military equipment. The idea that civilians carried such things seemed impossible. The knife, came another voice. Why do civilians need weapons? For cutting rope, or wood or food, Hyunwoo said. Also for protection if needed. Every human adult knows how to use basic tools as weapons. Every adult, Vextar repeated from her elevated position. Your entire population has weapons training. We learn as children, Hyunwoo said. Parents teach us how to be safe and how to survive. It is normal education on Earth. The hall erupted in worried sounds. Species that had never known violence could not understand a world where children learned to fight. They saw humans as a military species disguised as diplomats. Perhaps, Hyunwoo said loudly enough to quiet the room, I could demonstrate why these skills exist. He moved to an open area near the podium. Without warning, he dropped into a combat crouch and rolled to one side. His movement was fast and fluid. He came up in a different position, ready to fight or run. The entire hall went silent. On Earth, this is called evasion, he said calmly. We learn it because predators attack without warning. Fast movement saves lives. He stood normally, again, but every representative had seen the speed and control. They had seen a diplomat move like a soldier because on Earth the two skills were the same. We also developed strength, he continued. He walked to a section barrier designed to separate different atmospheric zones. The barrier weighed as much as a small vehicle and required mechanical assistance to move. Hyunwoo gripped it with both hands and lifted it over his head. the hall exploded in panic. Representatives fled their seats, security forces activated, emergency protocols engaged. Yun-Woo carefully lowered the barrier back to its position and stepped away with his hands visible and empty. On Earth we carry heavy things and work with our bodies, he said to the chaos around him. High gravity and hard living make us physically strong. Chancellor Vexitar called for order, but it took several minutes for the representatives to return to their seats. Many kept their security shields active. Some had called for their ships to prepare for emergency departure. Ambassador Kim, Vexitar said when quiet returned, "You have demonstrated that humans possess abilities far beyond normal biological parameters. This frightens the Council." "I understand," Hyun-Woo said, "but we are still people who want." Dr. Ji-Ho Lee arrived on Nexus Prime 3 days after Hyun-Woo's demonstration, sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Her transport ship carried scientific equipment and data files that would either prove humanity belonged in the galaxy or confirm they were too dangerous to exist freely. She found Hyun-Woo in his assigned quarters reviewing reports from Earth. The space was designed for standard galactic physiology, and everything looked too fragile for human use. The chairs could not support human weight. The bed was too short. The walls were thin enough that normal human movement might damage them. "The Council fears us," Hyun-Woo said, without looking up from his reading. 3 species have already requested immediate return to their homeworlds. "I saw the security footage," Ji-Ho said. "You lifted a barrier that requires machines for most species to move." "I was trying to show them we are not weak," Hyun-Woo said. "Instead, I showed them we are strong beyond their understanding." Ji-Ho sat carefully on the fragile furniture. "That is why I am here, to help them understand where our strength comes from." She opened her data case and pulled out holographic projectors. The small devices contained the complete biological and cultural history of humanity. Everything from fossil records to population genetics to historical documentation. "Chancellor Vexitar has agreed to a series of educational sessions," Ji-Ho said. "The Council wants to understand human evolution before they make any decisions about membership." The next morning, they met in a large conference room with representatives from 57 species. Most were scientists or cultural experts. All looked nervous about being in the same room as humans. Ji-Ho began with Earth's geological history. The holographic display showed their planet 4 billion years ago, hot and violent with constant volcanic activity and asteroid impacts. The atmosphere contained poison gases. The oceans boiled. Life began on Earth under conditions that would kill most galactic species instantly, she explained. Only the hardiest organisms survived to reproduce. A representative from the crystalline Korthani species raised 3 of his arms. Our homeworld was always stable. Life developed slowly in perfect conditions. Why did Earth life not die out? Because dying out was not an option, Ji-Ho said. Earth life learned to adapt or it ceased to exist. There was no middle ground. She showed the next phase of Earth's development, the formation of continents and oceans, the development of an atmosphere that could support complex life, but also the beginning of what galactic science called impossible conditions. Earth's rotation creates weather patterns that include hurricanes with winds over 200 kilometers per hour, she said. These storms can destroy entire cities. Several representatives made sounds of distress. Hurricane force winds were considered planetary disasters in galactic terms. The idea that they happened regularly seemed impossible. Earth life adapted by becoming flexible, Ji-Ho continued. Trees learned to bend instead of breaking. Animals learned to hide or migrate. Plants learned to regrow quickly after damage. Regrow quickly, repeated a floating representative whose species resembled jellyfish. How quickly? Some Earth plants can regrow completely in weeks or months after total destruction, Ji-Ho said. They store energy in root systems underground where storms cannot reach. The representatives looked at each other with expressions of amazement. Most galactic plant life grew slowly over centuries in stable conditions. The idea of rapid regeneration was revolutionary. Ji-Ho moved to the next display showing Earth's ice ages. Every 100,000 years or so, Earth's climate changes dramatically. Temperatures drop by 20 or 30 degrees. Ice sheets cover entire continents. Most life dies. Most life dies, Vextar said. But not all. Not all, Jiho confirmed. The survivors were those with the best ability to adapt. They developed new behaviors and new physical traits. Over millions of years, this created species that could survive almost anything. She showed the fossil record of human ancestors, small primates living in trees when Earth's climate was warm and stable. Then the climate changed and the trees disappeared. The primates had to adapt or die. Our ancestors came down from the trees and learned to walk upright, Jiho said. They developed larger brains to solve new problems. They learned to make tools and use fire and work together. Work together, came a voice from the back of the room. Explain this cooperation. Early humans lived in small groups, Jiho said. They shared food and protected each other's children. They developed language to coordinate hunting and defense. Individual humans were weak, but groups of humans were strong. She showed archaeological evidence of early human settlements, cave paintings that told stories, burial sites that showed care for the dead, tool-making areas where knowledge was passed between generations. Your species developed culture, observed a representative whose body looked like living metal. But culture requires stability. How did humans maintain culture during ice ages? They carried culture with them, Jiho said. Stories and songs and skills passed from parents to children. Each generation learned from the previous one and added new knowledge. This caused another stir in the room. Most galactic species developed stable civilizations before they faced major challenges. They built libraries and schools and permanent institutions. The idea of carrying an entire culture and memory seemed impossible. Jiho showed them examples of human oral tradition, epic poems that preserved historical events, songs that contained survival information, stories that taught moral lessons and social cooperation. Humans can memorize thousands of lines of poetry, she said. Children learn these stories and remember them perfectly into old age. We carry our entire civilization in our minds. Impossible, said the crystalline representative. Memory is unreliable. Information changes every time it is repeated. Not for humans, Jiho said. She recited 50 lines of an ancient Korean poem from memory. Then she asked Hyunwoo to recite the same poem. Their words matched perfectly. We developed perfect memory techniques because we had to, she explained. Forgetting survival information meant death. Our brains evolved to remember exactly. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. These aliens had never needed perfect memory. Their civilizations preserved knowledge in books and computers. They could not understand minds that treated every piece of information as potentially life-saving. Jiho moved to more recent human history, the development of agriculture and cities and technology, but also the continuation of challenges that shaped human nature. Even after humans built civilizations, we faced disasters, she said. Earthquakes destroyed cities. Floods wiped out crops. Diseases killed millions. Wars forced entire populations to flee their homes. Wars, Vextar said quietly. Explain. Wars. This was the hardest part. Jiho knew that most galactic species had never experienced large-scale conflict. Their evolution favored cooperation over competition. Sometimes human groups competed for resources, she said carefully. When food or water or land became scarce, different groups would fight for survival. Fight for survival, the floating representative repeated. You mean organized violence? Yes, Jiho said. Humans developed military tactics and weapons and strategies for group conflict. The room erupted in worried sounds. Several representatives stood to leave. Security forces moved closer to the humans. But humans also developed peace, Jiho said loudly. We learned that cooperation achieves more than conflict. Modern human civilization is built on international cooperation and shared resources. After how many wars? Came a voice from the shadows. Thousands, Jiho admitted. But each war taught us more about the cost of conflict. We learned to solve problems without violence. Thousands of wars, Vextar repeated. And you claim to Be peaceful. We claim to be experienced, Hyunwoo said. We know what war costs and we choose peace when possible. When possible, the crystalline representative said. What about when peace is not possible? Then we know how to win quickly and with minimum casualties, Hyunwoo said. We learned efficient methods through necessity. This statement caused another wave of panic in the room. The idea that peaceful humans could become efficient warriors terrified species that had never faced real conflict. Jiho tried to redirect the conversation. Human military experience also created human rescue capabilities, she said. We developed medical techniques and engineering solutions and coordination methods that save lives during disasters. She showed footage from recent Earth disasters, earthquakes and hurricanes and volcanic eruptions, but also human response teams working to save victims, helicopters flying through dangerous storms, rescue workers entering collapsed buildings, medical teams treating hundreds of injured people. Humans risk their lives to save strangers, she said. We developed these capabilities for war, but we use them for humanitarian aid. The representatives watched in amazement as humans performed rescues that required technology and courage beyond galactic norms, flying vehicles through storms that should destroy them, working in conditions that should kill them, coordinating massive relief efforts in hours instead of days. Your species treats disasters as normal events, observed the floating representative. Because they are normal on Earth, Jiho said. We prepare for them and respond quickly because waiting means people die. People die, Vexitar said. And this motivates humans to take extreme risks. Yes, Hyunwoo Captain So-min Park arrived at Nexus Prime just as the political situation reached breaking point. 3 more species had requested emergency departure from the station. 5 others demanded immediate restrictions on human movement. The Galactic Council faced its first major crisis in 800 years. She found Hyunwoo and Jiho in their quarters reviewing security reports. The documents showed increasing tensions between different factions of species. Some wanted to study humans. Others wanted to control them. A few wanted them gone entirely. The situation is deteriorating rapidly, Hyunwoo said. Chancellor Vexitar can barely maintain order during council sessions. What changed? So-min asked. Word spread to homeworlds, Jiho said. Billions of galactic citizens now know that humans exist and what we are capable of. Many are demanding their representatives take action. So-min studied the reports. Her military training helped her see patterns the diplomats missed. This is not random panic. Someone is organizing opposition to human membership. Admiral Korth of the Zephyrian Empire, Hyunwoo said. He has been quietly building a coalition of military-focused species. They want to test human capabilities before making any decisions. Test how? So-min asked. Before anyone could answer, an emergency alert sounded throughout the station. All representatives were summoned to an immediate council session. The 3 humans hurried to the main assembly hall, where they found chaos waiting. Chancellor Vexitar stood at the central podium trying to restore order, while hundreds of representatives argued in dozens of languages. The translation systems could barely keep up with the flood of angry voices. The border colonies are under attack, Vexitar announced when quiet finally returned. Pirate fleets using unknown technology have destroyed 3 settlements and captured thousands of civilians. Admiral Korth rose from his section in the upper galleries. His species looked like armored reptiles, and his voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. The attacks began shortly after human arrival, he said. This cannot be coincidence. These pirates use tactics similar to human military doctrine. Angry sounds filled the hall. Many representatives turned to stare at the human section with suspicion and fear. Admiral Korth, Hyunwoo said, standing to respond. Are you suggesting humans are responsible for these attacks? I am suggesting the timing is suspicious, Korth replied, and I am proposing a solution. Let human representatives accompany our response fleet as military advisors. If humans are truly peaceful, they will help us resolve this crisis. The proposal created immediate debate. Some representatives saw it as a reasonable test of human intentions. Others saw it as manipulation, designed to put humans in impossible situations. I volunteer. So-min said before the argument could continue. I will accompany your fleet as a military advisor. Captain Park, Hyun-woo said quietly. This could be a trap. Everything here is a trap, So-min replied. At least this one lets us prove our good intentions through actions instead of words. Admiral Korth looked surprised that a human would volunteer so quickly. Very well. Captain Park will join the response fleet. We depart in 6 hours. The Zephyrian fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and 40 support vessels. Their technology was impressive by galactic standards, with powerful shields and weapons designed for overwhelming enemy forces through superior firepower. So-min studied their tactical displays during the journey to the border region. The Zephyrian doctrine was straightforward. Find enemy ships close to weapons range. Destroy everything that resisted. Capture what remained. Admiral, she said during the fleet briefing, what do we know about the pirate tactics? They strike fast and disappear, Korth replied. Our forces arrive to find destroyed settlements and no targets to engage. Hit-and-run tactics, So-min said. They avoid direct confrontation with superior forces. Cowardly behavior, one of the Zephyrian commanders said. Honorable warriors face their enemies directly. So-min studied the attack patterns on the tactical display. The pirates targeted isolated colonies with minimal defenses. They struck during shift changes when response times were slowest. They avoided areas with military patrols. These are not cowards, she said. These are professionals who understand military strategy. Explain, Admiral Korth said. They choose targets that maximize gain while minimizing risk, So-min said. They gather intelligence before attacking. They have escape routes planned. This is organized military action disguised as piracy. The Zephyrian officers looked uncomfortable. Their culture valued direct confrontation and overwhelming force. The idea of avoiding fair fights seemed dishonorable. When the fleet reached the border region, they found the 4th colony under attack. 3 pirate ships were bombarding the settlement while smaller craft loaded captured civilians onto transport vessels. All ships attack, Admiral Korth ordered. Full power to weapons. Wait, So-min said. This is what they want. They want us to rescue the civilians, Korth replied. They want you to charge directly at them, So-min said. Look at their formation. The pirate ships were arranged in a line between the planet and open space. The transport vessels were behind them, closer to the planet. Any attack would have to go through the combat ships to reach the transports. Standard defensive formation, a Zephyrian commander said. We overwhelm their defenses and rescue the prisoners. Look closer, So-min said. She highlighted sections of the tactical display. Their combat ships are older models with limited firepower, but their engines are military grade. They can outrun your fleet. So we destroy them before they can escape, Korth said. While they destroy the transports full of civilians, So-min replied. The moment you attack, they will kill the prisoners and run. The Zephyrian officers stared at the display. Their tactical doctrine had no answer for enemies who used hostages as shields. What do you suggest? Admiral Korth asked reluctantly. We split their attention, So-min said. Send half the fleet around the planet to block their escape route. The other half approaches slowly from this side. When they realize they are trapped, they will try to negotiate. Negotiate with criminals, Korth said. Impossible. Negotiate for the lives of innocent civilians, So-min corrected. Then we find out who they really are and what they want. Admiral Korth looked around at his commanders. None of them liked the idea of talking to enemies instead of fighting them. But none of them had better ideas for saving the hostages. Implement Captain Park's plan, he ordered finally. The fleet split into 2 groups. Half went around the planet to block escape routes, while half approached the pirates slowly with weapons powered down. The pirates reacted exactly as So-min had predicted. Unknown fleet, came a transmission from the lead pirate ship. Withdraw immediately or we will destroy the prisoners. Pirate vessels, Admiral Korth replied. You are surrounded. Release the civilians and we will discuss terms. Terms? The pirate commander sounded surprised. Galactic forces do not negotiate. These are special circumstances, Korth said, looking at So-Min. State your demands. What followed was 3 hours of careful negotiation. So-Min advised Korth on reading the pirates' responses and predicting their next moves. Slowly, they learned the truth about the attacks. We are not pirates, the enemy commander finally admitted. We are refugees from the Kepler system. Our worlds are dying and the Council has denied our requests for aid. Dying how? So-Min asked. Our sun is entering an unstable phase, the commander said. Solar flares are destroying our atmosphere. We have perhaps 2 years before our worlds become uninhabitable. Admiral Korth looked shocked. Why did the Council deny your aid requests? Because helping us would require relocating 60 million people, the commander said. The Council considers this too expensive and too disruptive. So-Min studied the tactical display while listening to this exchange. Everything suddenly made sense. Desperate people with nothing left to lose. Military ships probably stolen or purchased with the last resources of dying worlds. A plan to force the galaxy to pay attention through dramatic action. You are not trying to be pirates, she said. You are trying to be noticed. Yes, the commander said. Peaceful requests for help were ignored. Perhaps violent demands will be answered. They will be answered with violence, Admiral Korth said. This is not the way to gain aid. It is the only way left to us, the commander replied. We have tried everything else. So-Min looked at Admiral Korth and saw him struggling with concepts his training had not prepared him for. The Zephyrian military was designed to fight enemies and protect allies. They had no experience with desperate people who fell into neither category. Admiral, she said quietly. What if there was another option? Explain, Korth said. What if we treated this as a humanitarian crisis instead of a military problem? So-Min said. 60 million refugees is a big number, but the galaxy has 847 member worlds. The Council already rejected relocation assistance, Korth said, because they were thinking like bureaucrats instead of like military officers, So-Min said. Military thinking would approach this as a logistics challenge. How do you move 60 million people quickly and efficiently? Admiral Korth stared at her. You want to organize the refugee relocation as a military opera? News of the Kepler refugee crisis resolution spread across the galaxy, faster than anyone expected. Within days, every member world knew that humans had convinced a military admiral to solve problems through negotiation instead of force. The reaction was immediate and divided. Chancellor Vextar found herself managing the worst political crisis in Council history. Emergency sessions were called by 12 different species. Formal complaints were filed by 37 planetary governments. 3 ancient civilizations that rarely participated in Council affairs demanded immediate meetings. Yunwu stood in the Chancellor's private office reading reports from across the galaxy. Half the member worlds praised the innovative solution to the refugee crisis. The other half demanded immediate restrictions on human influence before their methods could spread further. The hegemony has requested a formal hearing, Vextar said. Her feathers were turning darker colors that indicated extreme stress. They have not intervened in Council affairs for over 1,000 years. What is the hegemony? Jiho asked. The 5 oldest civilizations in the galaxy, Vextar explained. They formed the original Council and wrote our founding principles. Their combined age is over 50,000 years. And they object to our membership, Hyunwoo said. They object to your methods, Vextar corrected. The hegemony believes that changing military doctrine to accommodate refugees sets a dangerous precedent. So-Min looked up from her own reports. Admiral Korth saved 60 million lives and prevented further attacks. How is that dangerous? Because it required abandoning established procedures, Vextar said. The hegemony built galactic civilization on the principle that consistent procedures create stable outcomes. They fear that human flexibility will lead to chaos. The formal hearing was scheduled for the next day in the Grand Assembly Chamber. This was a larger space than the normal council hall designed to accommodate the most important decisions in galactic history. Only 7 such hearings had been held in the past 3,000 years. When the humans arrived, they found representatives from every member world in attendance. The massive chamber buzzed with nervous energy, as species that normally avoided each other were forced to sit together for this historic event. The hegemony representatives sat in elevated positions at the center of the chamber. Each looked ancient, even by the standards of their long-lived species. Their presence commanded respect and fear from every other delegate. "Let this hearing begin," announced the eldest hegemony member. His species looked like living stone and his voice sounded like mountains moving. "We gather to determine whether the human species poses an existential threat to galactic civilization." "Existential threat," Hyunwoo repeated. "That seems extreme." "Nothing about your species is moderate," the stone being replied. "In less than 1 standard month, you have convinced a military admiral to abandon combat doctrine that has maintained peace for millennia." "We convinced him to save lives," So-min said. "You convinced him to negotiate with criminals," another hegemony member said. Her species resembled giant insects and her mandibles clicked as she spoke. "You convinced him that established military procedures were wrong." "They were wrong for that specific situation," So-min replied. "Different problems require different solutions." "Different solutions," the insect being repeated. "This is precisely the danger you represent. For 3,000 years, galactic civilization has thrived because we follow consistent principles. We do not change our methods for every new challenge." Jiho stood to address the assembly. "Honored representatives, may I ask what would have happened if the refugee crisis had been handled through standard procedures?" "The pirates would have been destroyed, and the hostages would have died," the stone being said without emotion. "This is the expected outcome when criminals take innocent lives. 60 million refugees would still be facing death from solar flares," Jiho continued. "Their desperation would have driven others to similar attacks. Perhaps," the insect being said. "But our procedures would have remained intact. Future criminals would not expect negotiation and compromise. Future desperate people would not expect help from the council," Hyunwoo said. "They would know that peaceful requests are ignored while violent acts get attention." The stone being made sounds that the translators converted to laughter, but without humor. "You think like creatures from a Deathworld. You assume that survival justifies any action. We assume that intelligent beings should adapt their methods to achieve the best possible outcomes," Hyunwoo replied. "Not maintain failing systems because change is uncomfortable." This statement caused an uproar in the chamber. Thousands of representatives began arguing in hundreds of languages. The translation systems overloaded from the volume of simultaneous conversations. The eldest hegemony member raised one massive stone hand and the chamber fell silent immediately. "Human ambassador," he said, "you call our systems failures. These systems have maintained peace for 3 millennia. "Your systems maintained stagnation," So-min said. "Peace is not the same as progress." "Explain," the insect being demanded. So-min activated a holographic display showing galactic technological development over the past 3,000 years. The rate of innovation had slowed dramatically over time until it reached almost zero in the most recent centuries. "Your civilization stopped growing," she said. "You achieved stability by avoiding all risk and change, but without risk there is no reward. Without change there is no improvement." "We achieved perfection," the stone being said. "Why would we need improvement?" "Because perfection is impossible," Jiho said. "New challenges always arise. New problems always appear. A truly perfect system would be able to adapt to handle anything." "The refugee crisis proves this point," Hyunwoo added. "Your perfect system had no answer for desperate people willing to use violence because peaceful methods failed." The chamber erupted again, but this time some voices sounded thoughtful instead of angry. Younger civilizations that had joined the HFY Council more recently were beginning to see the humans' point. A small voice cut through the noise. Nala, the young Ethon representative, had been given permission to address the hegemony directly. "Honored elders," she said, "I have studied human proposals for 3 weeks. May I share my conclusions?" "Speak," the eldest stone being said. Humans do not seek to destroy our civilization, Nala said. They seek to strengthen it. Their methods seem dangerous because we have forgotten what it means to take risks for important goals. Taking risks leads to disasters, the insect being said. Avoiding all risks leads to decay, Nala replied. The Ethon have been studying galactic history. We found evidence that our ancestors once took great risks to explore space and contact other species. Risk-taking created our civilization. The hegemony members looked at each other with expressions that were hard to read. They had lived so long that they remembered when the galaxy was younger and less predictable. What do you propose? The stone, being asked Nala. I propose we test human methods under controlled conditions, she said. Let them demonstrate their approaches to specific problems while we monitor the results. And if their methods cause disasters, the insect being asked, then we learn from the disasters and try different approaches, Nala said. This is how progress works. The eldest hegemony member was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded different, older and more tired, but also more thoughtful. Young Ethan, he said, you remind us of ourselves when we were young and thought any problem could be solved through clever thinking. Can they not be? Nala asked. Most can, the stone being admitted. But the solutions often create new problems that require more solutions. Change never stops once it begins. Then perhaps it should not stop, Hyunwoo said. Perhaps continuous adaptation is better than perfect stagnation. The chamber fell completely silent. Every representative understood that they were witnessing a moment that would change galactic history. The question was whether that change would be positive or catastrophic. Suddenly, emergency alarms began sounding throughout the station. Chancellor, Vextar received urgent communications from the station's emergency command center. The station's orbit is decaying, she announced to the shocked assembly. Solar storm activity has disrupted our position-keeping systems. We have approximately 72 hours before atmospheric entry. Panic spread through the chamber as representatives realized they were facing exactly the kind of crisis their perfect systems were not designed to handle. Standard evacuation procedures required weeks of preparation and coordination. All ships prepare for emergency departure, came announcements over the station communication systems. Evacuation will begin in 48 hours following standard protocols. 48 hours, Somin said, checking her portable computer. The station will enter atmosphere in 72 hours, but structural failure will begin in about 60 hours. Standard evacuation protocols will not work. What do you suggest? Chancellor Vextar asked. The three humans looked at each other. This was exactly the kind of situation their Deathworld experience had prepared them to handle. Multiple systems failing, time pressure, thousands of lives at risk, standard procedures inadequate. We evacuate everyone in the next 18 hours. Hyunwoo said. Impossible, the stone being said. Proper evacuation requires careful coordination and safety checks. Proper the evacuation of Nexus Prime began with chaos that terrified every galactic representative except the humans. Standard procedures called for careful documentation of every person leaving the station. Safety checks on every evacuation vessel. Detailed flight plans approved by multiple authorities. All of this would have taken days they did not have. So Min took control of the evacuation coordination center and immediately abandoned every standard protocol. She divided the station population into groups based on species' environmental needs rather than political importance. She assigned ships based on capacity and speed rather than diplomatic protocols. She ignored safety margins that were designed for normal conditions. Captain Park, Chancellor Vextar said, watching the evacuation board fill with red warning indicators. Every system shows dangerous overload conditions. Every system was designed for normal evacuation over weeks. So Min replied, we are doing emergency evacuation in hours. Red warnings are expected. Expected, the Chancellor repeated. You plan for dangerous conditions. We planned for acceptable risk levels under emergency conditions, Jiho explained. She was coordinating medical evacuations and had made decisions that shocked galactic medical protocols. Perfect safety is impossible during disasters. Good enough safety that saves lives is the goal. Hyun-woo was in the communications center coordinating with evacuation ships. He had convinced captains to exceed their normal passenger limits. 2. Fly closer together than regulations allowed. To skip time-consuming safety procedures that were designed for routine operations. Ambassador Kim, came a transmission from one of the ship captains. My vessel is loaded to 150% of standard capacity. Regulations prohibit takeoff under these conditions. Captain, Hyun-woo replied, your ship can safely carry that load for the short flight to the nearest safe port. Regulations are written for long-duration voyages. This is an emergency evacuation. If something goes wrong, the extra passengers will die, the captain said. If we follow standard procedures, everyone on the station will die, Hyun-woo said. Which risk do you prefer? This exchange was repeated dozens of times as human emergency thinking clashed with galactic safety culture. Every ship captain had to choose between accepting higher risks or leaving people behind to die. The hegemony representatives found themselves in the unprecedented position of watching their perfect systems fail while human methods succeeded. The eldest Stone being stood in the evacuation center monitoring the progress. Your people are breaking every safety regulation we have established, he said to Hyun-woo. Our people are saving every life we can reach, Hyun-woo replied. Some regulations are more important than others during emergencies. All regulations are equally important, the Stone being said. They exist to prevent disasters. They exist to prevent disasters during normal conditions, So-min said without looking up from her coordination displays. These are not normal conditions. Different situations require different rules. As the evacuation continued, the efficiency of human methods became impossible to ignore. Ships were launching every few minutes instead of every few hours. Passenger loads that should have required 6 ships were being handled by 4 ships with careful planning and risk management. But the human approach also produced exactly the kind of incidents that galactic regulations were designed to prevent: minor equipment failures, overcrowded conditions, navigation errors caused by rushing procedures. Ship 7 Alpha is reporting life support strain, came a status update. They have 300 passengers in a compartment designed for 200. How long until they reach Safe Harbor Station? So-min asked. 47 minutes, the coordinator replied. Life support will hold for 47 minutes, So-min decided. Continue evacuation. You are gambling with their lives, the insect hegemony member said. We are calculating odds and making the best available choice, Jiho said. Life support strain for 47 minutes versus certain death when the station breaks apart. The math is simple. The math is inhuman, the insect being replied. The math is realistic, Hyun-woo said. Pretending we have better options does not create better options. 6 hours into the evacuation, a real crisis developed. One of the larger evacuation ships suffered engine failure halfway to the nearest safe port. It carried over 800 passengers and could not complete its journey without assistance. Standard galactic procedure called for dispatching rescue ships to tow the disabled vessel to safety. This would take 12 hours and require pulling ships away from evacuation duties. The math was brutal. Saving 800 people would cost the time needed to evacuate 1,500 people. This is exactly why we have safety regulations, the Stone being said grimly. Now we face impossible choices. No, So-min said, studying the tactical display. We face difficult choices with clear solutions. She opened communications with the disabled ship and 3 nearby vessels. Captain, Chen on Transport 12, she said. Your ship is only half loaded. Can you take on additional passengers? Affirmative, came the reply. We can handle 200 more. Transport 18 can take 150, came another voice. Transport 21 can take 200, came a third. So-min turned to the evacuation coordinator. Order the disabled ship to transfer passengers to the nearby vessels. Small shuttles can handle the transfers in 90 minutes. Transfer passengers between ships during flight, the coordinator said. That procedure has never been tested. The procedure is simple physics, So-min said. Match velocities, connect airlocks, move people. We do not need to test simple physics. If something goes wrong during transfer, we could lose everyone, the stone being said. If we do nothing, we definitely lose 800 people when their life support fails, So-min replied. Definitely losing people is worse than possibly losing people. The passenger transfer began 30 minutes later. Galactic representatives watched in amazement and terror as shuttles moved between ships traveling at thousands of kilometers per hour. Passengers were relocated in small groups while both ships continued toward safety. The operation succeeded, with only minor injuries. 800 people were saved through procedures that violated dozens of safety regulations, but worked exactly as human physics calculations predicted they would. Your species treats disaster management like military operations, Admiral Korth observed. He had been watching the evacuation with growing admiration for human coordination abilities. We treat disasters as problems that need solutions under time pressure, So-min said. Military operations are just one example of that kind of problem solving. And if your solutions fail, Korth asked. Then we try different solutions, Jiho said. Failing at one approach does not mean giving up on the goal. This is what terrifies us, the insect hegemony member said. Humans never accept that some problems cannot be solved. Because most problems can be solved if you try enough different approaches, Hyunwoo said. Giving up too early is the only real failure. 12 hours into the evacuation, the humans achieved something galactic civilization had considered impossible. 3/4 of the station population had been evacuated using methods that should not have worked according to established safety protocols. But the success came with costs that troubled many observers. Several people had been injured during rushed procedures. Equipment had been pushed beyond safe limits. Ships were operating with reduced safety margins that could cause problems later. You saved thousands of lives, Chancellor Vextar said to the 3 humans. But you also created dozens of dangerous situations. We created manageable risks to avoid unmanageable disasters, Hyunwoo replied. Perfect safety was never an option once the station began falling. How do you live with the knowledge that your decisions might cause harm, she asked. How do you live with the knowledge that avoiding decisions definitely causes harm, So-min replied. Inaction is also a choice with consequences. The final phase of evacuation required the most dangerous human decision yet. The station's structural integrity was failing faster than predicted. The last 5,000 people needed to leave immediately, or they would die when the station broke apart. Standard procedure called for using the largest available ships to maximize passenger capacity. But the largest ships also took the longest to load and launch. Human calculations showed they would not have enough time. We use every available ship regardless of size, Hyunwoo decided. Small, fast ships with quick loading times. Small ships have higher accident rates, the evacuation coordinator warned. Small ship accidents killed dozens of people, So-min said. Station collapse kills thousands of people. We choose the smaller risk. The final evacuation looked like barely controlled chaos to galactic observers. Dozens of small ships launching every few minutes. Passengers running through corridors instead of walking in orderly lines. Safety checks reduced to essential minimum instead of comprehensive review. But it worked. The last evacuation ship cleared the station with 18 minutes to spare before structural collapse began. Not a single person was lost when Nexus Prime broke apart and fell into the planet's atmosphere. The evacuation had saved over 40,000 lives using methods that violated Eve.